Hey guys, welcome back to doremicom channel. We're here with Season 4, Episode 4 of the RTD, titled Taming the Tabletop Shrue. This is all the factors beyond the core tabletop supplies for a single army. Playing a tabletop game means more than just purchasing and painting models and learning the rules. It means acquiring game aids like templates, terrain, tokens, and even finding a place to play. With all these extra pieces to the puzzle, how is the average wargamer managing all of this? Our usual 6-question format will be extended by one as we explore this. And with me today are my panel, starting with our co-host, SolidSmurf.
I sound like a burly man today.
And next is John from WarGamePainting.
Hello, everybody. Suit up.
And the guys you voted most that you wanted to see in the survey that we requested, Romeo from Battlefoam.
Lucky you guys, you actually did get me. That's terrible.
All right. Question number one. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being absolute 0, 10 being metaphysical certitude, how likely is an individual player in purchasing all of the extra elements needed to play a game? That includes templates, terrain, effect status tokens, etc. And for this question, we're going to start with John from WarGamePainting.
Well, I give it a 3, mainly because when I originally started into tabletop games, my group that I played with on a regular basis, we shared everything from rulers to dice. So, I mean, if you're just jumping into the hobby, I don't see it as a very high number at all.
Okay, so John explains 1, but says 3. Next is SolidSmurf.
See, I give this a 5. And kind of by what John said, the keyword in there is all, meaning one person will own everything. I don't think anyone owns everything unless you're a neckbeard. Now, if you go to army-specific items, I think that number just bumps up to a 9.
Again, it's interesting. You guys are giving numbers that are way higher than your explanation. Romeo, what's your thoughts on this?
I'll reel in everybody. Here we go. Since I make accessories for a living, I would hope it would be 12. More than likely it won't be because the budget won't allow for it. But realistically, I would say just going off of our gaming group, I'd give it a solid 7. I feel that games today are designed in a way where they force you to buy the accessories. And what I mean by that is take War Machine, for instance. You are almost mandatory to have the cards, dry erase marker, the tokens, rulers, templates, and all that. So at that point, the rules of the games being designed nowadays are being focused so hard on these accessory additional items that it's going to drive that number higher and higher every year as manufacturers are getting smarter about how they manufacture their main line and then what they plan on releasing and go with it later on.
All right.
I say 7.
All right. I actually think the number is much lower, but that's, again, only because we stipulated every single thing. That means, like, people owning personal terrain for an entire board. I mean, everything that you would possibly need. I think the number is actually closer to really about a 2. I think you're looking at maybe 10 or 15% of the people that really have everything, and those are probably people who more often than not host games at their own house as opposed to going to a gaming club or a gaming store where you have that collective. Now, am I saying that people are going without? No, but I'm saying individual people purchasing them, I think the number is actually fairly low. And this is continued discussion time. All right, continued discussion. Anyone want to throw in some extra points now that we answered question number 1?
I really... No, go ahead.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah,
I was just
go
going
for
to say
it.
that. I think a lot has to do also with your area you live in, because certain parts of the world and country, of course, are going to have different stores available to them. So the person that has maybe 2 or 3 battle bunkers nearby, or has Game Workshop official stores, or are in a high density populated area, they're going to have more of these resources available at their local store. They don't have to actually invest in them themselves. Now, there's some places where it's a little more desolate. Stores are farther to find, harder to get to. These where you may find where one person, maybe will create almost like a gaming club and start gathering all these needs. But at the end of the day, that person at some point is still going to generally have the same amount of stuff that a store would have. So now you're talking about terrain, you're talking about templates, dice, extra sets of tape measures for your friend that forgets his. So at that point, it goes up in that number again. But you're right, maybe his friends come over and they don't have anything. So now they go down in the number, down in the 1s and 2s. So it's kind of a mix, and I think the location has a lot to do with it.
I think that's an excellent point. Smurf, you want to throw what else you got going on?
Like I said, I think the keyword is all. I mean, very few people are going to have all things. And maybe I should have shot lower with 5, but I don't care. I'm standing behind my 5. But I do see when you throw in an army-specific item, look at War Machine tokens, look at the War Machine faction-specific terrain, things like that, people go, hey, I play that army. I want more of that army, and they're more willing to buy items because they become fanboys of their army. And so I think if they trended that, I think that number would go up, and we would definitely hit it to the 8 to 9 because they're going to be like, I own all the terrain for this army.
Well, or you could even have,
and people would make money.
Or you could have relatives who don't know what to get you for relative whatever your holiday season of choice is, and they go, well, I think I've seen that logo somewhere. Get him that. John, you got anything extra before we jump on to question number 2?
I think the major thing that jumped out at me in that first question was the terrain. I don't know anybody who starts a tabletop game and has terrain just sitting around. I mean, we use books with tablecloths over them and like shoe boxes turned upside down, whatever we could find. So that one was the major thing that just jumped out for me. And I don't think we'll ever have army-specific terrain. I don't see that. I don't think anybody would really buy that either.
Well, you already do, because I mean, in War Machine, for instance, there's like the some Menoth temple thing, that exists out there, but I can see the debate, and I also see that, I kind of agree with Romeo, the fact that people aren't necessarily going to go without. It's just that them personally owning it is the key, I think, to that question. Let's go ahead and jump on to question number 2. What gaming-related factors may influence whether or not a wargamer purchases all the ancillary pieces? This means we're not looking at their current financial situation, but rather factors that relate to their choice of wargame or in regards to the hobby as a whole. And for this, we're going to start we started with John first, right? Last time? Okay, Romeo, we're going to start with you.
So, I mean, if you look at it, like, as far as extra pieces, I can answer this as a gamer, right? So, I play War Machine, I play Infinity, I play Malifaux. I used to play 40K a lot. I haven't played that as much. And I know personally, whenever I get into any game, I feel like I need to have all the extra bits and bobs, right? So for me, I almost chalk it up as a necessity. If I'm playing, for instance, a Dark Angels army, right? I'm going to more than likely want the Dark Angels, what was that thing that GW released last year, the big monolithic-looking terrain piece. It was like $100. Totally unnecessary, totally over-the-top price. Typical GW standard issue, right? But it was cool, and I liked it, and I thought, wow, if I was I'm not a Dark Angels player, I'm just using that as an example, but if I was a Dark Angels player, I would say, yeah, you have to have that. So for me as a gamer, I kind of feel like if I am playing a faction or an army or a game, I'm going to collect all the doohickeys and doobobs for that game and faction to kind of just keep my hobby flowing and really enjoy what I picked.
So,
army.
So Romeo is very much a nationalist when it comes to the army that he has chosen to play. Smurf, what's your thoughts on this subject?
I think the size and the functionality of the piece makes a huge difference. We are a mobile group. We have to be able to throw it in our pocket, fit it in a case, do something to take it with us. Prime example. Look at the giant widget for Warhammer Fantasy that they came out with. It's like not an abacus, but it's a protractor, some crazy thing like that. And the thing is huge. It doesn't work very well. And it's just like people shelled out money and it goes, why did I buy this? And it's absolutely terrible. I mean, it's definitely I would rather have something that's ugly that works fantastically than something that's beautiful and works terribly.
All right. John, what's your thoughts?
I agree with that.
John.
I think it's going to be the group of people that you play with. If you're playing at a game store and there's the people there that want you to buy all the cogs and the bits and the army-specific stuff and they ride you for, doing anything outside the box. Or if you're playing at home with your friends and you can get away with using pennies for tokens, I think that's going to be a huge influence because if it's down to it, honestly, I would prefer not to put the energy and the time that it takes to get all of these other things collected when I could just be using pocket change to count everything that I have.
All right. My thoughts on the subject are that there's a couple of focus issues. All right. There's a couple issues that I see as big ticket items. There's a couple issues that I see as big ticket items. The size of the game matters. If there's a lot of models floating around, you might not want to buy terrain to add to that you have to carry, which again segues nicely into how far you're going to game. If you're playing at home, you're going to necessarily buy more of the things. If you're going out to a game store, you might not want to lug everything that you have to bring to necessarily purchase every single extra piece of the game. Another factor is how much of a crusader you are for the game, because if you really enjoy a particular game and it's new to your area, you're far more likely to either produce yourself or purchase those extra items to really show anything that you can possibly do to remove confusion and speed up the game and make the game more enjoyable to more people to get them into your particular war game of choice is key to the puzzle. And that's what I got. So, extra thoughts. So, John Smurf, you got anything?
Nope. I've said my mind.
Nope.
So we're going to go ahead and jump on over to question number 3. And question number 3 is, if a gamer does not own all the extra pieces needed to play a game to its fullest, what is the first thing the average wargamer will choose to substitute with a less convenient everyday item rather than purchase? And this is not meaning that they've spent time scratch building something. This is simply taking something not intended for wargaming and using it in a game. And for this, we're going to start with SolidSmurf.
I'm going to say yes. We see this with terrain, and then from the hobbyist aspect, the paint. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people go, don't buy this, go buy Floor Stealer and dip the dude in it, and bada bing, bada boom, you're at So I think we're some of the most, there's two aspects. We have the people who are diehard, have to buy from the gaming company fans, and then there's the other guys who are let's squeeze every penny out of things that don't go to the gaming guys, and let's make it work. And those guys are awesome. I like those guys. So, yeah, we're ingenious people. We're nerds. Come on.
So Smurf, I'm asking for one thing. Pick it. Terrain or is it paint?
Terrain.
All right, John, what's your thoughts?
I hate saying it, but carrying cases are the first thing that I think of. Nobody ever buys carrying cases first. You buy them later when you realize, oh, look, they protect my stuff and they all fit and they're awesome, and then you can get them custom made for you. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Hey, there you go.
But to start off with, you get your size 14 kick box and you just throw all your stuff in it and you bring it to your game store. You don't go out and buy stuff immediately, but
all right, Romeo, you're up.
We are working very, very hard at changing that persona right now, and have been for 3 years. So I couldn't agree with you guys more. I think a lot of people use protection in the carrying case and the storage in general for their minis as an afterthought after they've bought hundreds of minis, spent tons of hours painting those minis. The last thing they care about is what they get there from point to point with them, from point A to point B, until they realize, oh crap, the shoebox isn't going to work. I have every Tyranid model they make. My War Machine models weigh 25 pounds. In the Tupperware box I bought at Kmart, is just not holding up to it anymore. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think storage and containers in general is probably the most overly abused item that should be considered as one of your early purchases, not your last purchase.
All right. For my answer, if we weren't talking just about the extras, I would have actually said the models for the game, because when I first started this hobby in 40K back when I was in high school, we were using bottle caps, we were using Lego men. It didn't matter. But when we look at just the extras, I think the first thing that people will necessarily not invest in are tokens, because and by this I mean the status tokens. A lot of people will use Post-it notes, they'll use coins. The tokens are kind of an afterthought. I was going to say terrain because terrain is so easy to make, but I think the average gamer won't sacrifice for bad terrain before they forget to purchase tokens. Continue discussion. John, throw down some more.
I was about to say, I think the next biggest thing that people shy away from in the beginning is terrain, because honestly, if you're playing with shoe boxes or books or, cups or whatever on the table, it still works. I mean, it's not visually pretty, but you don't have to deal with going out and not sure what you want to buy, because that's a huge thing when you first get into the game. It's really scary buying stuff because you're not sure if you're going to use it later. And when you're seeing $80, $90, $100 worth of merchandise that you might never use again, you're really intimidated by that. So I think terrain is a really, really close second.
No, I was just going to say, I think terrain is one of those hot items on the high list of forget about items, because people tend to go somewhere where terrain is waiting for them when they arrive, via store, via friend's house, or via just, generally just using whatever you can find laying around the house kind of thing. So I think terrain is probably way back there because people just figure, well, I'll just make do until I go play at the store. So if I'm going to do a quick pickup game at the house, it'll be whatever I got laying around.
Well, and to some degree, you can definitely see that a lot of people want variety in their terrain as well, and that can get crazy expensive. You already shelled out hundreds of dollars potentially for a table's worth of terrain, and hey, we don't want to play in the forest anymore. We want to play in a city-type landscape. That's a ton more extra money. So, again, having that collective mindset of, especially when it comes to something like terrain, I think is it's logical why it's already happening today. I think it'll continue happening tomorrow. Smurf, you got anything before we jump on to conclude this part of the episode?
I hit my big two, the paint and the terrain. I have seen some ingenious things done with cheap paint, and I think people need to learn from that. But and I'm not talking just apple barrel. I mean, I've seen someone go get a $12.99 oil paint set and just do fantastic work with it, and you're just like, that's a miniature, and that looks amazing. And it's just experiment. Be willing to get your hands dirty. And I don't think people they see these paint lines that people come out with, and that it's step ABC, and they're not willing to try, steps out of an OP.
Well, but you can understand sometimes when the models are costing you $15 a pop, playing around with experimenting with paint might not be the number one thought on people's minds.
But the paints they're force-feeding you aren't necessarily good paints.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, so you understand why they're...
Are you painting with pigeon poop? Or are you painting with, leopard poop? Take your pick.
Nice. I'm hoping I'm not painting with either.
Or we could wait around for a hobby company that comes out and charges $14 for 15 models.
Oh,
not trying to self-publicize there or anything.
Yeah, nice, John. Guys, we're concluding with part one of episode 4 of... We're concluding with part 1 of season 4, episode 4, Taming the Tabletop Shrew. We'll be back with part 2 very shortly.